Your tap water traveled through pipes laid before your parents were born, and you are paying up to $1,800 a year to trust them completely. A barrel of sand and gravel in Holmes County, Ohio, produces water that meets EPA biological standards for pathogens. No cartridges, no chemicals, no electricity. Total material cost is $20, one afternoon to build. And nobody in the home improvement industry has ever mentioned it to you. $20 is not the cost of a pitcher filter that needs a new cartridge every 2 months. It is the total material cost of a biosand filter built from gravel, coarse sand, fine sand, and hardwood charcoal, assembled in a single afternoon that produces safe drinking water for a family for years. I spent 22 years buying bottled water for my family at roughly $40 a month, because nobody once mentioned that a layer of biological film growing on sand could do what I was paying a bottled water company to do for me. The filter that replaces the bottled portion costs $20 and one Saturday. I did not know. Nobody told me. And there is a word for why, a German word, one that was used in engineering literature for more than a century before it quietly vanished from every residential building guide published after 1974. It is the key to everything in this video, and by the end, you will understand exactly why that word disappeared. There is also an important safety boundary to understand before you build one, and I will give you that precisely when we get to the build. The average American household spends roughly $600 a year on tap water and another $1,200 on bottled water. That is $1,800 a year. Over 30 years, that is $54,000. The bottled water industry alone generates $94 billion a year globally, and in the United States, roughly 100 billion single-use plastic bottles are sold every 12 months. A significant portion of that bottled water is municipal tap water run through a carbon filter and repackaged. They take water from the same municipal source you already pay for, filter it through activated carbon that costs pennies, put it in a plastic bottle, and sell it back to you at a markup of roughly 3,000% over the actual cost of the active filtration ingredient. You are buying your own water twice. The institutional decision that made that arrangement permanent has a name and a specific year. In 1974, the United States Congress passed the Safe Drinking Water Act. The legislation is massive. It codifies centralized municipal water treatment as the national standard and directs federal funding exclusively toward chlorination plants, rapid sand filtration facilities, and large-scale infrastructure. Not one line in the legislation bans slow sand filtration. Not one paragraph says a family can't build a biosand filter in their garage. It just stops being funded. 1 fiscal year, 1 budget cycle, and 2 centuries of distributed water knowledge quietly vanishes from American construction manuals and extension service publications. The WHO published a review that said it plainly. The move away from slow sand filtration in industrialized countries has largely been a function of rising land prices and labor costs, which increased the cost of slow sand filter produced water. Not because it failed, because it was cheap, because it couldn't be metered, because you can't charge a monthly bill for something that runs on gravity and sand. That's the part that keeps me up at night. The Global Health Authority confirmed the method works. The economic system buried it anyway, and I want to show you what was kept alive in Holmes County while the rest of the country forgot. There is a 1903 USDA agricultural survey of Amish and Mennonite settlements in eastern Ohio. I have read it, cover to cover, in a research library in Columbus. The surveyors documented, without particular comment, the layered sand and gravel filtration systems in use on 37 farms across Holmes and Wayne counties. They noted the systems with the same casual indifference they used for barn dimensions and crop rotation schedules. They moved on. No one in Washington asked why those farms had cleaner water than the surrounding townships. No one followed up. That document sat in government archives for decades, while the country spent trillions building the infrastructure it had just decided was the only acceptable answer. The Amish did not reject modern water treatment because they are suspicious of science. They rejected dependency. In Holmes County, where the largest Amish settlement in the world sits on glacial till with variable groundwater quality, every family I have visited has some version of the same system. I have stood at the edge of those properties and put my hand into the output water of filters that have been running for 40 years without a single replacement part. It is not decorative. It is not tradition for tradition's sake. The geology there demands filtration, and they built filtration that answers to no utility, no billing cycle, and no supply chain. Concrete-cased wells have casings extending at least 12 inches above ground level to prevent surface contamination from runoff. Rainwater cisterns have pre-filtration beds of sand and gravel to remove sediment before water enters main storage. Regular cleaning schedules for cistern walls and pump components are maintained across generations without a service contract. 7 generations of clean water without a single municipal hookup. Not because they had no choice, because the system they had already worked. And the core of what makes it work is a single biological process that most Americans have never heard named out loud. The Amish call it the living layer. The engineers who studied it in the 19th century called it the Schmutzdecke. Once you understand what the Schmutzdecke actually does and how long it has been doing it, the rest of this story is going to make you genuinely angry at what you have been paying for. A biosand filter is not complicated. It is a column. Gravel sits at the bottom for drainage, typically a 4-inch layer of washed pea gravel. Coarse sand sits above that, another 4-inch layer for structural support. Fine sand sits above that, packed tight to a depth of at least 18 inches, forming the filtration bed. And at the very top of the sand, sitting beneath a layer of standing water, roughly 2 inches deep, something alive. Schmutzdecke. It is a biological film, a community of microorganisms, bacteria, algae, and protozoa that colonizes the top half-inch of the sand within 7 to 30 days of first use. It does not just trap contaminants physically, it consumes them. Pathogens that enter the water column are caught in that biological mat and destroyed by the organisms living in it. The sand below slows the water's passage to roughly 1/10 of a liter per minute per square foot of surface area, giving the biology time to work. That flow rate is not a flaw, it is the mechanism. Remove it and the system becomes just a sand column. Keep it, and you have something alive that improves with every day it runs. This is not theory. This is documented. Field studies in Haiti found biosand filters producing water in the safe range in 97% of cases, tested across rural communities with no access to municipal treatment. Slow sand filtration, the broader method the biosand filter is based on, has been documented by the World Health Organization to remove up to 99.9% of bacteria and viruses from water. The slow sand filtration method was first formally applied to municipal water supply in London in 1829, and it has been in continuous documented use somewhere on this planet every single day since then. Nearly 2 centuries, not as a curiosity, as a functioning public health tool. Over 500,000 people in developing nations currently use slow sand filters as their primary source of drinking water, documented by National Institutes of Health published research in 2021. These are not my numbers. These are published by the World Health Organization, confirmed by National Institutes of Health field studies, and verified by Environmental Protection Agency water quality testing protocols. Here's the number that changes everything. $20 versus $1,800 a year. $20 buys the gravel, the sand, the charcoal, and the container. $1,800 is what the average American household pays annually for tap and bottled water combined. The $20 system produces water that passes Environmental Protection Agency biological standards for pathogens. The $1,800 system produces water that comes through pipes you can't inspect, treated with chlorine you can't taste until it's too much, delivered on a schedule you can't control. That gap is not a technology problem. It's an awareness problem that someone had a very strong economic incentive to maintain. A man outside Millersburg, Ohio, built his biosand filter 3 years ago. Concrete block housing, 12 inches by 12 inches interior, 36 inches tall. Charcoal layer sourced from local hardwood he cut and burned himself, not commercial briquettes. Gravel pulled from a dry creek bed on his own property and washed twice before use. Before that filter existed, he was hauling bottled water at roughly $40 a month for a family of 4. He tracked it in a notebook. $43 in January, $38 in March, $41 in the summer when his kids drank more. Total material cost for the filter was $22, including the food-grade container he sourced from a local restaurant supplier for $6. He waited 30 days. He checked the output water each day, holding a mason jar of it up to the light and watching the clarity improve as the biolayer established itself. On day 31, he sent a sample to a certified county lab. It came back within Environmental Protection Agency biological safe range for every pathogen category tested. He just never opened another case of bottled water. Now, here's the honesty, and this part matters before you build anything. A biosand filter is not a complete purification system for every contaminant. Boiling destroys 99.99% of bacteria and pathogens, but it does not remove chemical contaminants like arsenic, nitrates, or heavy metals. Activated charcoal removes chlorine, volatile organic compounds, and strange tastes and odors. But its pore size is too large to reliably trap microscopic bacteria on its own. That is not a suppression claim. That is a documented performance limitation. The charcoal works for what it does. It just does not do everything, and neither does sand alone. This is why the 3-stage approach matters, and why I want to be direct about suitability before you build. If your source water contains known chemical contamination, industrial runoff, agricultural pesticide residue, or high arsenic levels, a biosand filter alone is not sufficient. You need to know what is in your source water before you rely on any home filtration system as your primary drinking water supply. Your county extension office or your state health department can test source water for a nominal fee, often under $25. That test is not optional. It is the first step. For biological contaminants from surface water, rainwater, or groundwater in areas without industrial contamination, the biosand filter combined with boiling for drinking water is what the Amish understood. 3 stages. Sand provides biological filtration via the Schmutzdecke. Charcoal handles chemical and taste removal. Boiling is the final kill step for drinking water specifically. That combination addresses what each individual stage cannot handle alone. If you are building one, you need a food-grade container or a concrete form at least 3 feet tall and at least 10 inches in interior diameter for adequate flow volume. 4 inches of washed gravel belong at the bottom. 4 inches of coarse sand go above that. At least 18 inches of fine sand, packed and leveled. A charcoal layer sits above the sand, 1 to 2 inches, sourced from hardwood, because briquettes contain binding agents you do not want in your water. A diffuser plate at the top, a simple flat piece of plastic or food-grade rubber with small holes drilled through it, prevents disturbing the sand surface when you pour water in. An outlet pipe positioned about an inch above the top of the sand layer controls the standing water level automatically. You do not adjust it, and you do not monitor it. Gravity handles it. You fill it. You wait. 30 days. The Schmutzdecke forms on its own. You do not add anything. You do not buy anything. The biology does the work. The one mistake that kills most homemade filters is letting the sand dry out. The biolayer is alive. If the water level drops below the sand surface, the organisms die and the biolayer has to re-establish from scratch, another 30 days. You refill the filter daily, even if you do not need water that day. Maintenance is 1 cleaning of the top sand layer per year, wet, harrowing the surface gently with your hand under running water without removing the sand. 2 cleanings in high sediment conditions. The filter itself does not wear out. There are no parts to replace. There is no cartridge. There is no subscription. Before you use the output water for drinking, test it, not with a store kit, with a laboratory test. Your state health department or a certified water testing lab can run a basic biological safety panel for under $40. That test tells you whether your Schmutzdecke has matured and is performing. Do not skip it. Now, a man in Cookeville, Tennessee, built his filter 4 years ago under very different circumstances. His county issued a water advisory following a flood event that contaminated the municipal supply with agricultural runoff. He built the filter over a single weekend from materials he sourced from a local hardware store and a feed supply yard. After 4 years and 1 gravel cleaning cycle, his filter output was tested by the county extension office and showed a 94% reduction in fecal coliform compared to his source water. He kept the original county water advisory letter framed on the wall above the filter. He told me the filter cost him $28. The advisory letter cost his county $3.2 million in emergency response. He has not needed a water advisory since, not because his municipal supply improved, because he stopped being entirely dependent on it. 2 people, 2 states, 2 different reasons for building one system. The Schmutzdecke does not care about geography. It forms in Ohio and it forms in Tennessee, and it will form in your garage this coming weekend if you give it gravel, sand, and 30 days. The tap is still there. The bill will still come. The pipes behind your wall have not changed, and the utility company has not changed. And the bottled water industry is still taking your municipal water, filtering it through activated carbon worth pennies, and selling it back to you in plastic at 3,000% markup. None of that has changed tonight. The Schmutzdecke does not care about any of it. It does not care about the Safe Drinking Water Act. It does not care about land prices or labor costs or quarterly earnings. It has been forming on sand and gravel since before this country had pipes. It was forming on those 37 farms in Holmes County in 1903 when the USDA surveyor wrote it down and moved on. It is forming in Holmes County tonight. And for $20 and one Saturday, it will form for you. You were never supposed to know that word. You were supposed to keep paying for the system that replaced it. Now you know it. If your municipal water supply went down tomorrow and stayed down for 30 days, tell me in the comments whether you currently have any way to produce safe drinking water at home. Answer yes or no, and say what state you are in. If you are the kind of person who believes real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do.